Hi, I'm very Nasser, founder of Meet Healing, and today we have Gurlane Belzar. Welcome, Gurlane.
Yes, good to be here.
Welcome to our workshop today. Your voice, your insight is very valuable. Gabrielle, the floor is yours.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction, Ferry. So as Ferry already mentioned, my name is Gabrielle. I'm one of the psychologists in Me Time Healing, and I'm really looking forward to talking about psychological safety in diverse teams, building trust across differences. To start, I'm going to do the super annoying thing of asking all of you to turn on your cameras because this is a very interactive workshop as much as possible. It is totally fine if you are at home, if you are going for a run, if you are in the car. I don't care what you're doing. You're not going to be distracting. I just want to see that you're there. I want to engage with you because I don't just want to talk at a computer screen because that makes me feel a little unsafe. So I like to know who I'm talking to and be able to engage with what works best for you as well. You are welcome to talk at any point during the meeting. Maybe just give me a little bit heads up so I can stop talking. Otherwise, you can pop any questions or comments in the chat. So I do have the chat open so that I can monitor it as I am presenting as well. So feel free to communicate that way also. So let's get started. I want to ask a question to you all. I want to know what helps you to show up your best as your best self at work. So I'm not asking what makes you feel safe at work. I'm not asking what is the best thing you do at work. I'm asking what helps you to show up as your best self at work. So we have respect. Yeah, that's a super good one. So feeling like you are respected as a team member, as a person, as an individual.
Hello? No,
Yeah.
no, no. Demain, je serai dans
I'm not sure who's talking. If you're trying to talk on purpose, you can pop it in the chats if you're not sure. We have respect, we have compassion. So feeling compassion at work, feeling values, having good communication. Yeah, all of these are essential for all of us, I think, to show up as our best self. Okay, if you have more, feel free to pop it in the chat as well. I wanted to preface that I ask this specific question for two reasons. All right, so I'm asking what helps you to show up as your best self at work? Because at work, we want to perform, we want to accomplish tasks, we want to meet our goals or meet certain standards. And to do that, we need to be at our best. So if we want to do our best at our job, we the days that we do our best are the days that we feel our best self, right? So we feel safe, right? Being safe, feeling safe is one of the fundamental needs that we have as a person to feel a solid well-being, right? Whether that's physical safety, mental safety, emotional safety, all of that kind of goes under the term psychological safety, right? And that is essential to what we need to feel good in the world around us. And the second reason I ask what helps you to show up as your best self is because we are all individuals and we are part of a team, but each individual brings their own unique qualities, their own unique ways of working, thinking about things, and of being a part of a team. So we can take our skills, we can take our talents, our certain qualities, the things we know, our certain perspectives, and all of these individual differences are the ways that we can acknowledge diversity. Right? So diversity comes in so many different forms. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you some information, but I really thought, how can I make this the most beneficial for you as people who are coming to this workshop and wanting to gain something from it? So I have tried to come up with a lot of practical tools as well as a bit of information to understand how and why to use these practical tools. So I want to start off by asking, so I know now a little bit about what makes you feel like you can show up your best self, but I also want to know, I assume that most of you are leaders of a team or work in a team. So what helps a team to function well? What are your ideas? What helps a team function well? Feeling heard and seen. Yeah. Equal standing. Yeah. So making sure that everyone feels like they all have a voice, they all have power in the situation, some control over the situation. Probably good good communication. So being able to communicate with one another, right? Can you imagine a team that just doesn't communicate? Would they ever get anything done? I've definitely had this before where I've been on teams that we don't communicate and everybody kind of ends up doing the same thing. And then we've all wasted hours of work because we could have just communicated what we were doing and solved this problem from the beginning. Collaboration, right? No bad ideas. I really like that one. So this is something. So I was a teacher for 3 years, and my favorite thing to say is that there are no wrong answers and there are no bad questions. If you have a question, it may be a very silly question, right? But you are allowed to ask it because it's something that you don't know. And maybe it's very clear and maybe it's really not. And you don't know that until you give the opportunity for somebody to acknowledge that you have this question and for somebody to respond. So the ideas that I came up were a few simple ones. So teams function well when they're able to share ideas, thoughts, or concerns, right? Teams also function well when they are able to ask questions. Again, there's no bad question. Ask questions. If you don't understand what we are doing or why we are doing it, ask. Not only do you ask questions for yourself, but I think what is also equally important is asking other people questions. Do you agree with what we're doing? Do you have any other ideas? Do you think there's a better way? Right? Also, how are you doing? Is this too much for you? Is this enough? Do you want more? Also, teams function well when they're able to admit fault or error. We have all, I'm sure, maybe I'm wrong. If you do not fit into this, please, by all means, share with us how you manage to never have an error or a fault at work, because otherwise I assume many of us do. And what is important is being able to admit that, right? Hey, I did something and it wasn't ideal. It wasn't really helpful, or someone needs to come back and help me correct this mistake. And if you're not able to admit that, you cannot go back and fix it. And sometimes you need a little extra support. And things can be a lot easier if you just ask somebody for help or say, hey, I didn't do this well. I'm really worried about it. And it could not be as big of a deal as you thought, but you need to be able to recognize that. What is important for all three of these elements is that they're done without fear of embarrassments, punishment, or negative consequences. And this is what we call psychological safety. So a term that we can use as psychological safety in the workplace is a team or workplace culture that is inclusive, responds productively to risks and mistakes, and is supportive of speaking up and expressing concerns. All right, so psychological safety is about creating a culture, a workplace culture, right? We're talking about cultural differences. Our workplace is its own form of culture. It is a set of norms and beliefs and ideas that we share and use to collaborate and work together, right? And making this culture inclusive, responding productively, and supportive of speaking up and expressing concerns. That is where we get psychological safety. So psychological safety is what this looks like is being inclusive. So it's the idea that I belong here, right? It is the idea that people value me. I'm valued for what I do. When we don't feel valued for what we do, we lose so much motivation, we lose engagement, and we lose productivity. Psychological safety is learning. So I can say when I do not know or understand something, if there is a system in place, if there is a task that is being asked of me, and I don't understand what is being asked, I can say, hey, you know what? Can you explain that to me again? Can you explain that to me in another way, or write it down so I can better understand what you're trying to ask for me? It is about contribution. So my ideas are welcome. You are allowed to have your own ideas and you're allowed to contribute them. They may not be used, and that is okay. Not every idea is a good idea, but every idea is valid, right? And many ideas are great ideas. They just need the opportunity to show up. And lastly, psychological safety is challenging. So I can raise concerns and question decisions, right? That does not mean that we need to question everything our boss or our leader does. It does not mean that we need to constantly question ourselves, but it means that there is space to do so when we feel that that is necessary. All right. And people have different experiences with power, with discrimination, with stereotypes, the way that they show up. And these elements are going to help people with all these different types of diverse experiences, opinions, perspectives, and desires for themselves to show up as their best self within the workplace. Now, what happens when teams do not feel safe? So if you do not have safety on your team, there are a few reasons why teams may feel less safe. All right, this may be due to inadequate boundaries. So this could be not understanding your job description. So this is something that I personally have experienced working in a startup, not this startup, but another startup, where it was not really clear who was expected to do what. And a lot of people ended up taking on a lot more responsibility than was necessary because it was kind of unclear whose role was what. So who was supposed to do what task? And this meant that things were either left undone or that people were ending up doing way too much and not being able to complete their tasks or work in a very efficient way because of what is being asked. Right? That's just one example of an inadequate boundary. It can also be due to discrimination. This can be gender discrimination. It can be due to race, different cultures. It can be due to sexual orientation. It can also be due to experience or ageism. I think those are two things that are often not talked about within discrimination, is saying that, you know, this person is a senior, they have more experience, so for sure they will do a better job than a junior representative, right? Or the other way around, juniors have so many fresh ideas and we should just listen to Gen Z as we come up with our media plan, and that can discredit senior position holders who may have equally important perspectives, right? It can also be due to bullying. I think we all know what bullying is. We probably think of kids on the playground who are just kind of like picking on each other. What I find incredibly interesting is that adults take bullying to a whole other level and make it way more complex and psychological. And it can be little microaggressions of ignoring someone when they walk in the office, rolling your eyes behind someone's back, gossiping with other colleagues. And of course, we all have our moments that we may not be proud of, where we feel our feelings and maybe you're like, oh, you know, this is not my favorite moments of the day or whatever it may be. But being mindful of the way that bullying presents itself is important. And then teams also don't feel safe when there's poor communication. If you do not feel like you can raise concerns with your boss, if you cannot say, hey, what you're asking of me is either not my responsibility or not in my skill set. Can you find somebody else who can better fit this role or complete this task? When these things are not present within a team, we often find that people are overloaded at work. So they're taking on too much responsibility. This can lead to burnout. So people are having to take off because they're so exhausted from so many responsibilities, from not feeling safe or included. They may feel isolated, right? When we feel isolated, like we have no safety within our workplace, we probably don't want to show up. It's like on Monday morning, you're like, oh, I have to go to the office again. All these people who don't really talk to me. And that doesn't feel good specifically for that person, but it definitely does not contribute to safe environments. And then also fear of retribution. So if I make a mistake, if I behave in a certain way, I'm afraid that I will either lose my job, people will respect me less, people will not listen to my opinions. These are the consequences when we don't feel safe at work. Now, when we do feel safe, this is incredible because we get better decision making, we get faster problem solving, right? Because people are working together. If I have a challenge and I want someone to help me, if I'm given a task and I find it really difficult, like maybe I don't know how to run a social media platform, but somebody else worked in media management. Why don't I go and ask them their perspective? Why don't I ask them to help support me? Because I don't need to do everything by myself, and it's okay to ask for help. They may say no, and they have every right to do so. But feeling like I can contribute, like I can have an inclusive team, and we can work together is going to lead to higher performance. It's going to lead to more innovation, and it's going to lead to fewer costly mistakes. All right. Am I talking too fast? Are there any questions or comments yet? Otherwise, I can just keep on going. I just love to hear myself talk, so I'll just keep doing it. That was a joke. I'm sorry. So There are some myths
It's
of
all good.
psychological safety. So I think a lot of times we can talk about psychological safety or kind of these well-being, and there's a lot of terms that are thrown around, and we have a lot of opinions in society about what these things mean. So I wanted to cover some myths that you might have, and feel free to put a thumbs up if you're like, yeah, I kind of thought that's what it was, because believe me, you're not the only one. First myth is that psychological safety is being overly nice, right? So we do not need to be overly nice. We can be constructive. We can be kind. We do not need to say to everything, oh, we're having a great day and you're doing a great job and like things are awesome. And if that's the way you approach it, that is absolutely okay. But that is not necessary to create a safe environment. It is not avoiding conflict. So conflict will inevitably arise, right? We have issues, we have disagreements, and what makes it safe is being able to address the conflict, not avoid it. So being able to problem solve. Psychological safety is not agreeing all the time. You do not need to agree with everything. You can also acknowledge, hey, thank you for that perspective. I'm going to take some time to think about it. Right? Thank you for the comment or the feedback. I need some time to process and then I will come back to you. Right? I may disagree, say, hey, I don't think I totally agree with that. Can we have a conversation so I can better understand your perspective? It is not removing accountability, so you can still hold people accountable. Hey, that could have been done a little bit better. How can we make sure that there are systems in place to make your work more smooth, to make your work more productive or more safe? And it is not that everybody feels comfortable always, right? We don't need to make everyone feel comfortable. Everyone is responsible for themselves. But what we need to do is to create a space where people feel safe to show up as themselves, right? They may feel uncomfortable, and that's okay. If they bring that to you, you can say, hey, what can I do to help you feel more comfortable at work? Do you want someone to talk to? Do you want to have a 5-minute coffee break? Right? So we can just vent about whatever's going on and give you the space to talk about what you need. One thing that I really liked from a previous employer of mine is I think some people really like to have this difference between professional and personal boundaries and work. And if that's how you feel, perfect. I personally like to intermingle a little bit because I personally know that my personal life has an effect on my professional life. And I need some space to acknowledge that. It's not something I need to do all the time, but I had a previous employee who every Wednesday we would go for a 30-minute walk because I really like to walk. I really like to be outside. And we would just go for a walk and talk about work, but also he always gave me the space to say, hey, what's going on in your personal life? Is there anything important that you feel you would like to share? And that gave me the option to either say, no, I don't really have anything going on that I want to share. Or, hey, actually, I do have some things going on, but I don't really feel like that is something that you need to know about me. But just know that I'm in a bit of a bad mood today. So it's probably best for you to ignore me a little bit for your own safety. Or to say, hey, you know what? I do have this thing going on. It's really weighing on my mind. I don't need you to do anything about it, but I just want to feel like I can communicate that to someone so somebody knows what's going on. And that for me, that one 30-minute walk a week really helped me to feel like I could show up as myself, whatever that may be, and do my best at work while I was there. So these are some myths that we can address with our practical tips. So how can we foster psychological safety at work and not just be overly nice? So the first thing that I want to make clear is that to foster psychological safety, we need to establish clear communication. So there's some things you can do. So one can be hold regular check-ins. So starting the team meeting on Mondays, hey, how's everybody doing? What is one good thing that happened this weekend? What is one thing you're proud of that you did last week? And you're like, wow, that went really well. Something that I personally started doing in a previous job of mine as well is acknowledging, hey, you know what? I did not have a super productive week last week. I was not able to finish this one task that I had on my list, and acknowledging that and making that my goal of the week, right? Because then you can acknowledge, hey, I wasn't at my best. I'm not going to pretend like I had the perfect week because I didn't. So I'm going to acknowledge that I was a little less productive, and I hope that you can hold me accountable and bring me support so that I can meet my goals this week. And that was a really great way to not just engage myself, but also engage my team with what was going on and what I was doing to bring more collaboration. You can also ask for differing opinions or experiences. So if you are presenting in your team and you are coming up with a new idea for, again, we'll go with a marketing example. You're coming up with a marketing tool and you can ask, hey, this is our idea. Does anybody have any different suggestions? If nobody does, that is completely fine. But by asking this question, asking for different opinions and experiences, you're inviting other people to share their diverse experiences. And this is going to be so important. And I have found this so valuable as I am an American living internationally. And so I work with a lot of different cultures, a lot of different types of people. And one thing that I really like is that everyone has different kinds of perspectives and opinions based on their backgrounds and based on their experience in life and in profession. So I am not one to be very, well, I think I am quite direct, but sometimes it's harder for me to do certain things that for other people they can just like list off or be very confrontational or think very quickly, and it takes me a bit more time to digest information. So being able to ask for differing opinions and experiences can really help to problem solve when problems arise.
Gabrielle, if you wouldn't
Yeah.
mind, that this is so wonderful. Ask for differing opinions or experiences. Any suggestions of other ways of gaining that information that's not verbal? So not everyone responds to being in the moment in front of the entire team to share their differing opinions and experiences. Do you have some wording that you find effective so that everybody feels comfortable to share in a way that's comfortable for them?
Absolutely. So this is something I think I mentioned later as well. There's one way you can help people who maybe don't want to talk in front of a group is by giving other communication channels. So saying, hey, if you have feedback, but you don't necessarily want to say it in front of everyone, send me an email. Come to me in the break and we can have a 15-minute conversation about what you want to share because I want to hear you. I want to know what your thoughts are. Right? I think the biggest thing is asking people, is there something that you want to share? Would you like that opportunity? And giving them that opportunity. So people have the choice because we all love autonomy. We love to feel like we have the choice to do things. So saying, hey, if you have feedback, you are welcome to address it in the meeting. You can ask me for a specific time. I have a 1 hour flexibility. Just come in my office. Let me know. Write me an email, write a post-it note and stick it on my desk, right? So whatever method that you need to be able to express yourself, you have the options. And if none of these work for you, come to me and ask. And I always like to ask, hey, what works best for you? Right? You don't necessarily need to know everything and what everybody wants and expects, but saying, hey, I notice that you often don't talk in meetings. You don't speak up. I think you have many ideas. I've seen your work. I want to know, how can I best support you to share your feedback? How can I best support you to do your job well and to bring your ideas and make them heard? And most people know kind of, I would say many people know kind of how they can best present and show up. And if they don't, say, hey, well, let's try this week. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, we can try something else next time. So I think giving people the opportunity and then asking them what they need is a really great way to open that door. And following up on that, we can invite feedback. So I really like after any projects, after any task that is completed, after any meeting, asking, hey, what went well? And what can we do differently next time? Right? Having one thing of like, yeah, that went really well. And also celebrate it. Be like, wow, we finished what we were supposed to do. Sometimes it can be the simplest thing of like, I finally checked this off my to-do list and that went really well. It can also be we made a really big sell and we want to celebrate the amount of work that we did. And also asking, what can we do differently? So what can we not do? How can we approach this from a different angle that is more effective? Be curious, not defensive. So if something didn't go well, that is okay. We are all learning. If we don't make mistakes, it is a lot harder to learn how we can do things better and differently next time. So when we make mistakes, that is every opportunity to be like, oh, this did not go super well. Any ideas how we can do this better next time? And let's try it again and see how it goes. We can check in. And if it's not going well, we can check in again. Lastly, establish a clear pathway for concerns. So if there is something that comes up, if there is a colleague, a team issue, a problem with leadership, make sure that there are clear pathways of where people can go to communicate, right? Because people need to feel like they have the opportunity to share what needs to be shared, right? A lot of times this is HR teams, but making this clear and direct is essential to making sure that people feel safe to communicate when issues do inevitably arise.
Yeah, every generation communicates differently. Younger generations like to communicate with text. The older generations like to communicate via email. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why it's like it's so nice to ask. So I personally I hate being on my phone. So I tell most people if I respond to you within 3 days, then I'm doing really well, because I just don't like to text. I don't like to feel like I'm accessible all the time. So I'm like, just give me a call. And if I miss it, I'll call back if it's really important. If it's really important, you can send me a text and I will know if it's from you that this is something that I really need to respond to. So asking people like, hey, how's it best for me to communicate with you can also it just changes everything. If you just ask people, what do you want? What do you need? And then respond to that. And then things can just become way more simple. All right, not always, but it is a very good step. 2, intentionally integrate opportunities to speak up. So after a meeting, if you've presented ideas, ask, what am I missing? Is there anything that I haven't thought of? Do you have any other ideas that could be helpful? Invite diverse perspectives. If you work in a team that has different cultures, different types of people, different forms of neurodiversity, different forms of gender and sexual orientation, in different forms of introvert and extrovert, there's so many forms of diversity that you can invite to solve a problem, to bring ideas and perspectives that will do better for your business and for your team culture. You can also rotate speaking opportunities. So I think what is important here is to, if you are, for instance, in a meeting, and you can start the meeting by saying, hey, I want to try something different. I want to make sure everybody feels heard. So I'm going to ask each of you to present something, or each of you to speak in a different meeting. If you are not okay with that, please do come and let me know. And then I will make sure to ask you for your feedback in another way, in a way that feels more safe for you. Right? So letting people know, by the way, you're going to be called on. So in the same way that I was kind of said at the beginning of this, like, by the way, I want you to put your camera on. I don't care what you're doing. I just like to know that you're there and I'm not talking to a black screen. In the same way that people like to show up in a meeting. Hey, I want to know what you have to say, and how you present that is up to you. Another good one is interrupting interruptions. So if you notice that we all know teams where there is a strong voice, someone who really likes to share their ideas, and many of those are great ideas and we love to hear them. But there's also other employees or colleagues who maybe are not as loud, not as forceful, and they deserve the same amount of opportunity to speak up. So if you notice that someone is speaking and you have a colleague who is constantly interrupting them, say, hey, you can say this in front of the group, you can say it privately and say like, hey, I really want to hear what Lisa was saying. Can you please wait? And then we can hear your perspective after. Something I've also done in my class that works really well is I've had a few students who really like to talk. They're super motivated. They have lots of thoughts and things that are very beneficial to learn in the classroom, but they often can overpower students who have ideas, who take a little bit more time before they are able to speak. And what I've done is I've gone to them individually before the class. I only have to do it once. I never have to do it again. The one time, and I say, hey, I love to hear your opinions. You have a lot of really good thoughts, and I want you to feel you can share them. And I also want to feel like other people can also share. And sometimes I think there's not enough time for that. So is it okay with you if I ask you to wait before you answer a question, so we can see if any other students have something to say? Right? And usually that person is like, yeah, cool. Like, I know I have a lot to say, but I want to hear from other people as well. And sometimes I just keep talking. I know I am that person because I don't like when there's that awkward silence where something's been asked and then just no one says anything. I have deemed myself the person who will just come up with something to say. And sometimes that can take away from other people's opportunities. So really just addressing it and saying, hey, I love to hear your voice. Maybe we can hear from some other voices as well. How can I address that with you in the meeting or outside of the meeting? And make it a discussion and acknowledge it. This, like, as I said earlier, make space for different communication styles. So giving people, you can send me a message on Slack. You can write it on the board and sign your name, whatever it may be. And then another good one is reward thoughtful feedback. So honestly, if somebody gives an opinion, just say, thank you. Let's consider that perspective. Thanks for sharing. Hey, I love that idea. It does not work right now, but I appreciate that you put thought into it. Acknowledging somebody's contribution goes so far. I will go a bit quicker through these because I really want to get to our next parts. The third practical tip is to address harmful behaviors. So if you notice that people are interrupting, making biased comments, rolling your eyes, you can address this, as I said, in the group. Hey, let's pause. That's not how we work here. You can also just, hey, this is not behavior that we want in our culture. Is there something that you would like to talk about? Do you have feedback? Then you can bring it to me individually. But we want to make sure that everybody feels safe to bring up their ideas, even if you don't agree with them. Take action and follow through with feedback. So if someone comes and says, hey, I really didn't feel comfortable with what you said yesterday, what you can respond is say, hey, I hear you. I hear that you were uncomfortable with that. And this is what I'm going to do differently. And I'm going to check in with you in 2 weeks' time after that meeting to see how things are going. Right? So checking in. Here's what I heard. So acknowledge what is being said. Here's what I'm going to do, make an action plan, and then follow up. So check in. And it may not be necessary, but it is always important to offer that opportunity. And then to take accountability. So if you say something, sometimes it can be really quick, like, hey, that really just wasn't done well. We just need to ignore it. And Jonas, can you please do this? Whatever it may be. Right? That person may feel like their work or intentions were not valued. And you can respond to that by saying, hey, that was not my intention to hurt your feelings, but I do see that it matters. And I think this is such an important question. How can I better communicate with you next time? Right? What do you need? What do you need from me to make sure that we can communicate well together? And this is my last tip. This is my favorite one as well. If you know me at all, you know that I am a really big fan of vulnerability. And I think that one of the most important things of feeling safe at work is modeling vulnerability. When you, as a leader, as an employee, as a team member, are able to share your own challenges or mistakes, you are inviting people to recognize that you are a person, that you are flaws, and that you are capable, right? All of these things can be true. And you are able to share, hey, I really struggle with this sometimes. Is that something you also struggle with? Probably. They may also. And maybe they don't. They say, I never have that problem. I don't know why you have that problem, but I never have that problem. And it's like, cool. Yeah, well, you know what? I really have a hard time speaking up in meetings. And I love that you don't have a problem with that, but that's something that's hard for me. And is there something that's hard for you? Just being vulnerable with how you experience work, with how you experience different parts of culture. Normalize not knowing, right? So if somebody doesn't know something, that's okay. Ask questions. I was once asked to do a task and work with, I don't know if I'm sure you guys know HubSpot. I hadn't worked with HubSpot before, and somebody said, hey, can you just go put this in HubSpot for me? And I was like, okay, I could spend 1 hour trying to figure out what you're asking of me, or I can just say, hey, I've never used HubSpot before. Can you please explain to me a little bit further or show me what you're asking of me? Because if you show me now, I won't have to ask again and I will know how to do it for next time. And then also offering, would you like to explore this together? So if someone has a question, would you like to do this together? Can I help you? Can I support you? And credit contribution. So if you see somebody who is working hard, even if they offer a good idea, again, say thank you. Thanks for speaking up. Say, wow, I really appreciate that you went a little bit above and beyond. Hey, I really am proud of you for doing this because I know this was hard for you. This is a challenge that you had shared with me. You said it was hard to speak up in meetings, and you were the first one. You were the first one to present, to bring an idea. So well done. I'm really proud of you, just as a person and as a team member. I will skip the challenges of safety. I've sent the slides to Ferry. I believe she will send them to you as well. These are just a few things that can kind of get in the way and good things to be mindful of. But I would like to move on to what I'm really excited for, and we are going to have a question and answer session. So when you are ready, because I am. I'm not sure what questions you would like to share. If you would like to kind of present your story a little bit first.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Gabrielle. That was an amazing presentation. I feel like I just want to hear more from you. Would you be okay if I start with a question for you?
Love that.
Something that caught my attention when you shared about someone expressing their concern and the responses, that was not my intention, but I see it matters. And what I've tended is to, there's this notion of impact is more important than the intentionality. And so this methodology that I've been really cultivating is to apologize for the impact without necessarily bringing in my intentionality. And I wondered your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I do think bringing up intention can be important. I've had it before with my personal or professional life where someone has said something to be intentionally harmful. And I think acknowledging, hey, I did not mean to hurt you as a person. I did not mean to offend you. Right. Because sometimes some people do. So I think it is important. And I think it can sometimes be unclear. And maybe even somebody doesn't even recognize that could be harmful. So saying, hey, I was not my intention. You don't have to say that every time, but saying, hey, not my intention, but I see that impacted you. And I did not mean for it. And I want to do better next time. So here's the situation. So you said that you were concerned with how I told you that I have different expectations of you and that hurt you as an employee. How can I better communicate that next time? So here's the list. What would be more helpful for you? So really acknowledging the impact, but also opening space of like, hey, I see that my way of approaching this problem is not the way that you need to hear it. So what can I do better to help you?
Indeed. Thank you so
But I
much.
do very much agree with focusing more on the impacts rather than the intention, because our intentions can be many things, but we still are going to affect the person who's receiving it. So being able to acknowledge that impact is equally important.
Indeed. Indeed. I thank you for that. And I think even just to saying it wasn't my intention, people can feel what your intentions are and how sincere you are. I think for so much of my life, I didn't experience psychological safety in the workplace. So this presentation was very emotional for me to listen to, and I hearken back to the belief I hold that when we know differently, we behave differently. So I appreciating what you shared here, and also realizing that psychological safety is significantly higher for me than it's ever been, especially in the last 4 years. And a lot of that has to do with the way I work. So I work remotely. I'm an introvert, and I realize that environment is key for me. I really appreciated over and over again in your presentation. It was this understanding what we need for psychological safety, understanding what we need to bring our best selves to work. And for me, realizing that environment is key. I don't flourish under fluorescent lights. I don't flourish in an open space where there's a lot of noise. I really need quiet beauty. I need natural light. So I realize that that has helped me. And also doing a lot of inner work, getting to know myself better, really being aware of the things that activate me has
Right.
made it has made psychological safety has shored that up for me. So
Yeah.
I have both the knowledge of what I need to feel a level of safety and also the confidence to communicate that to
Yeah.
my colleagues as well too.
Yeah. And both of those are such important and big steps as well. And not everybody knows what they need. And for sure, not everybody has the confidence. And those are skills that can be built over time. And those are
Yeah,
skills that can also be opened up when someone that you like a leader or just asking that question, hey, what would
yeah.
be helpful? And that can be such a good way to build those needs and confidence. And I'm really glad to hear that you were experiencing more of that within the past years of your professional life as well.
Yeah, it's been striking really to see the difference and to be able then to share it with my colleagues as well too. And I also appreciated in your presentation the one-on-one meetings, the check-ins. And it brought to mind situations in my previous work lives where I was in a meeting with a colleague and the colleague never looked at me. And this was an environment that was quote unquote fast paced, an environment where the notion was that we can multitask and multitask. That's a whole other conversation. But this culture of multitasking and fast paced meant that even if a meeting was on the calendar with another human being, I could be doing two things. So this person would be
Mm,
emailing, not looking at me, just kind of nodding as I talked.
mm,
And I'm realizing now that that didn't foster psychological safety in any way, shape, or form. It didn't feel as if one was being heard or one was being
mm,
seen. So
absolutely.
that memory came up for me too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good one. It's so easy for us to think, ah, no, I'm listening
Mhm.
and also I'm just like writing down my note really quick
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's so much more fair to somebody's perspective and to somebody's voice to give them the attention they deserve. And we're actually more productive when we put our focus in one place as well.
agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have sent you these questions beforehand. So I'm not sure if you have any questions that you specifically would like to discuss, but I'm also curious to hear more about. You mentioned that the listening to my presentation kind of
Mhm.
made you feel more emotional, and I'm curious if that's something you want to share more about, or if you would like to go directly to the questions and see what experiences you would like to share there.
Well, all of your questions were excellent as I shared with you. The question that really stood out to me was the question about um I don't remember the exact wording of it, but it was about, I think, fostering psychological safety in a fast-paced environment. Is that, oh,
Mhm.
thank you for having them. I don't, yes,
Yes.
where's the fast-paced environment? Yeah. Yeah. What makes it harder for underrepresented voices to speak up in fast-paced environments? And for me, I thought my experience is that I think the vast majority of voices, whether they're underrepresented or not, but here in particular, underrepresented in a fast-paced culture, I just feel that culture is not conducive to really listening.
Mhm.
In my work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, what I learn and what I stress with my colleagues is to slow down.
Mhm.
Like it really, really to slow down, to give the prefrontal cortex an opportunity to catch up to the emotions, and that I don't find fast environments. I know it's popular to stay in a culture, but I've not found it to be conducive to psychological safety and to speaking up. Because speaking up, especially when it's something that's very vulnerable or it's an idea that you're not quite sure about, but maybe it might work. I think that requires attention. I think it requires a sentiment that I'm going to be heard, that this is going to be absorbed
Mhm.
and really considered. Even in your presentation, this notion of saying thank you. Thank you for
Mm,
your thoughtful impact. The only reason
yeah.
you're aware that it's thoughtful is because you slowed down enough to really
Yeah.
take in that that person is presenting something that they're maybe a little bit vulnerable to share. So what do you think about a fast-paced environment? Have you, I mean, I'm sharing anecdotal, it's not necessarily quantitative, but in my experience, I don't find that conducive to
Mm,
an environment that fosters psychological safety and encourages all voices, in particular
yeah.
underrepresented, because it represents diverse perspectives and perspectives that are not normally heard. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, what are your thoughts? Just going back and forth with you on that
Oh, I
question.
love it. So, for those of you who are are not one of the two of us, feel free to also ask questions, pop it in the chats, offer your opinions as well. If you have something that you want to share, by all means, feel free to. Otherwise, I will continue. So, I will share a little bit from my own experience as well as a little bit from my own perspective, but also kind of trying to keep that out of it as well and come from a more unbiased place. I myself have worked in a very fast-paced environments. Um, I have, I am personally not a super big fan of it. However, this has been more of something that I have tried to implement in my own life and in all areas is this concept and ability of being able to slow down and to rest. Because I spent the first 27 years of my life feeling like I never took time to rest because if I wasn't doing something, I wasn't being productive, and that meant that I wasn't fulfilling my purpose or my goal or meeting whatever expectations that I or others had for me.
Yeah.
And I have learned that being able to pause not only gives you the opportunity for information to quite literally be processed in your brain. So you're giving yourself time to actually process information and ruminate on it and say, hey, let me think about that for a minute. That was important. That was vital. And I need time to process and make my own conclusions from it. So, and that is just one of those things that regardless, it takes time. It takes time to come, right? Some of the best ideas we have come from just spending time thinking through problems or having epiphanies or giving ourselves the space to just explore and be creative.
Mhm.
And that is something that can be left out from fast-paced environments. Some people do really well with this hustle and bustle and thinking really quickly on the top of their feet. And for those people, then a fast-paced environment can work better, but that is not the case for everyone. And holding everyone to that standard is not fair to the diversity that we experience. So I think there are ways to make moments of pausing and slowing down within a fast-paced environment. So whether that is, for instance, taking this 30-minute walk once a week. So this was a startup company where there were four of us on the team. So we were constantly, everyone was doing everything. And that 30 minutes really helps to take a moment to step back and to think through ideas. We had every Friday, we would have a brainstorm session. We would pick a topic and say, hey, let's pick this topic. If anybody has ideas, bring them to the table and we can just discuss and we can take that time. Everybody gets the chance to offer their opinions. It can also be creating a document in the group Slack channel and says, hey, if you have feedback, go and put it there. And we maybe will not acknowledge it in the moment, but we will always have a chance where we make time to come back to this feedback, where you have the chance to acknowledge and to bring up any problems. And maybe they're resolved later on, but we're at least making the space for that. So I think it's essential to make space to recognize those things and to take time and to say, hey, thank you. I don't have the time right now because there's a million other things going on, but I'm going to make the time to prioritize what you have brought to my attention. And that makes all the difference. And things can be very fast paced, but it's important to integrate those moments of reflection and sensitivity.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you see the chat, Gabrielle,
Close that
Andreas. Yeah. Yeah, Andreas has a comment. I don't know if Andreas, if you wanted to come in and share, and so did Bill. They both have wonderful comments as well as questions.
Yeah, yeah. Let me jump in there just quickly because I wanted to unify the last two. So one, our minds have become very transactional, especially in our country, because we're so driven to accomplishment, right?
Yeah.
So there's no space for humanity anymore. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And the other one is the concept of reverence, right? To teach the concept that, and this could be a spiritual concept. I consider spiritual, but it's not really. It's reverence for what's been given to us, and we're all different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we gotta respect that, and people just don't. So just unifying those
Exactly.
two. Any comments you have there, whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
It's so good. So what I will say is that is something that is so important to be aware of. So I really love that you are aware that every person brings something individual to the table, because that awareness allows us to start integrating that into the culture. And that is so hard. I sometimes am a little bit stubborn, we'll say, where I feel like I don't like the system, so I'm going to break the system from within inside. And I'm actually not going to follow the system, and nobody's going to make me. So I now also work in academia, and there's this kind of standard of researchers to just constantly be working, and like you should work overtime, you should produce all of this extra stuff and like all of these papers. And I'm like, you know what? At 5 o'clock, I'm turning my email off. So if I have things to do, if you want to contact me, you better wait till the morning, because I refuse. I refuse. Sometimes, I've also had where I'm grading papers and it's 2 a.m. and I'm like, I just have to get it done. I have to meet my deadline, and that's okay. But I really try to set boundaries for myself, because I refuse to be a part of the system that does not work for me, because I cannot be my best self if I'm being asked to overproduce. I can be my best self if I set good boundaries. And then when I'm at work, I am on top of it. I am doing great. I am super productive. But if I am not setting those boundaries for myself and recognizing what I need, it is impossible. So, and I think it is kind of an individual challenge to be able to bring that into a culture, to acknowledge that. So if that's something that you feel as an employee, being able to bring that to the leader and say, hey, I think it would be great if we could have a little bit extra recognition of what each person brings to the table. So I'll make this quick. Once with my other teachers, I got everybody to write their quality, the thing that they thought that they brought to the team. And we could just recognize that and be like, yes, you are the one who constantly is emotional support for everyone. You're the one who brings snacks to every meeting, and it may not be that big of a deal, but we love it because Mondays are hard and we love having our snacks, right? You're the person who always takes the notes, and you take notes really well. And just being able to acknowledge what each person brings, it takes 2 minutes. And it can make such a difference for people feeling valued and feeling like they belong and are able to work together within a team. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Bill said, I sense that the gist of your truly great presentation. Oh, thank you. Presentation addressed peer-to-peer interactions. How would you recommend best interact with the notion of managing someone who is above ourselves in corporate hierarchy? Oh, that's a good question. I personally don't think I really have a good answer to that. Also, because I don't think that's something that I've personally experienced in my field. So maybe somebody else has an option or an idea of what they could add there.
Maybe, Bill, you can share an example with us.
I think we've all experienced the notion of being in presence of someone who's I'm not going to say autocratic is probably a word that's too strong, but who, let's say, overbearing and getting their agenda out without recognizing other people. Like, I think Gabrielle's been so instructive in helping us understand a variety of ways of interacting with our peers in ways that are mutually beneficial, and beneficial beyond just a person-to-person thing, beneficial to the group as a whole.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll use the classic example that I'm aware of. I worked at a bunch of big companies, including Abbott Laboratories. I don't know whether he's still the CEO, but the CEO used to be a fellow by the name of Miles White. And the reputation of Miles was that when he went into a room, it was like a vacuum of power was sucked out of everyone's brain, and it resided right in front of the table in front of the table where Miles sat. It wasn't, he didn't really care about anyone else's opinion.
Yeah.
And frankly, I believe that 1 + 1 = 3. But that was not the situation when you're in the presence of someone like Miles White. Now, I will say that sometimes when there is an emergency, that it does make a lot of sense that there is a single authority power who's just saying, we got to do this. This is the way it's going to be. let's not have a lot of discussion about that. We're going forward. This is the plan. It may not be the best plan. It's the plan we're going to go forward right now, and we'll kind of work through it after the fact to see if you could have done it better. However, that's not the norm. We don't live in emergencies all the time, and so the
Yeah.
notion of being able to say, I work in the presence of someone who's overbearing, and he happens to be a manager, so I have to be sensitive to that. How do we go about the process of effectively titrating the way this person is interacting with all of us so that we can all feel some of the things that Gabrielle has been so insightful in providing us tools to work with. But this is a certain circumstance where we're dealing with someone who basically could put their finger and just squash us if they wanted to. Managing up is difficult.
I could volunteer what I did because I had similar situations in different
please.
cultures. So, unfortunately, Bill, there's such a power disparity at that point that you just can't control it. So what I would do is just go inside. I would go inside and find my my moment, find those moments of nirvana, right? And just calm me because being of Latin blood, I start boiling inside, and you don't want that. So I would just go back and trying to bring myself down and say, I can't control this power, the dynamic here. All I can control is how I respond. And I know it sounds a little trite, but that's all I could do.
That is true. Yeah. It's good to be mindful. And maybe I can also give you 2 examples from my experience that I thought of. So one, I think you, in the same way that you receive feedback, I think you are also allowed to give feedback, even to a manager, even to your boss. So I had an end of the year meeting review with one of my employers, and I said, hey, something that you can do. So we would get like evaluations from our students while I was teaching, and the email from the employee was always the same, like, here's your evaluation, great job. And that was it. That was the only acknowledgement of our work and our recognition. So in this meeting, I said, hey, it could be really helpful for us if you could give a little bit more recognition of what we do, of the individual qualities that we bring. Is that something that you would be open to? Because I know that as an employee, I will be able to do better if I feel a little more recognized for what I do, because I love my job and I work really hard, but sometimes this job is so stressful, and being able to recognize my contribution is something that makes me feel valued and makes me want to work harder. So I think giving feedback to an employer can be really beneficial. That does not mean that they take it. I do know that since I left this job, that my previous employer has started doing this, and that everybody feels much better because they're actually recognized for what they do. So I'm very happy that this paid off. And another one, so in the startup company, I was the only woman. And I was the only woman, and there was a man who has a very big presence, very big, like manning ideas, and really has a lot to say. And I'm a bit more quiet and thoughtful, and I will say something, but it does take me longer to respond. And I told a colleague who was in the same level position as him, and I said, hey, I know that I am at risk here of being the female secretary that sits in the corner. And I refuse to be that. And I said, what's also true is that I have a hard time standing up for myself in those moments, because I will let people walk all over me, and I will reflect on it later on. And then I recognize, could have done this differently in this situation. So I went to this employee and I said, hey, would you be willing to help me stand up for myself when I'm being overpowered by this person? And there were multiple times where he was able to say, hey, XYZ. Well, okay, this guy's name was William. And he would say, my colleague would say, William, like Gabrielle finished, she has some good ideas. We like to hear what you have to say, but it's her turn to speak. Or William would ask me to do something that was zero related to my job. And I'd be like, okay, what are you asking of me? And my colleague was able to go to him and say, because I don't think it was necessarily because I was a woman, but I do think that was what I noticed, is that it was that, but also because I was the only psychologist working with a lot of marketing and engineering. And I had very different perspectives of how things should be done from a very psychological way. And they were all very efficient, fast paced. And I was like, no, okay, we can take some time to slow down. But being able to go to another employee and say, hey, I have a hard time standing up for myself. Can you help back me up? Like, can you just help me recognize when I should do better? And that for me was really, really helpful for addressing that kind of power dynamic. And it didn't make everything better, but it definitely gave me the opportunity to feel more safe in a situation which I would have felt very unsafe in. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or gives you some other
Well, I want to say
ideas.
I want to say two things. One, Perry, I think you've done a brilliant job on selecting this topic and selecting Gabrielle to present it. Gabrielle,
Thank you, Bill.
what you've talked about in this presentation, which I think is really terrific, is something
you.
that's so incredibly devoid of experiences that I
Yeah.
think that that I know experienced in my corporate life of over 40 years. I have
Yeah.
never ever gone to a conference in which this subject matter, which is so important for making 1 + 1 = 3, is completely not presented. I frankly think that there ought to be a part of all scientific conferences. I've attended many of them in my career, that this presentation, particularly when entrepreneurials are involved or small companies are involved, and they're wondering, how do I make this all work? How do I take the 5 of us and make it look like it's 8 or 10 people trying to put a stake in the ground in the marketplaces we're in? Frankly, I think you ought to be doing a variation of this presentation in many conferences that are not just psychologically oriented, because then you're speaking to your peers and they're going to agree.
Yeah.
But frankly, there's a lot of educational part here that are not part of what makes companies successful, what makes the dynamics successful. And frankly, boy, it's just so incredibly valuable that I think that your voice needs to be heard by a much larger audience than just the group of us here. Truly believe
Thank
that
you,
to be
Bill.
true.
That is very, very kind. I really
Amen.
appreciate your words. And can you, it just reminds me of like, can
Bill.
you imagine
Thank you
working?
for joining us here and being part
Yeah.
of this conversation, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
it's
I mean,
lovely.
it's my benefit. So, but you're thanking me better. Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, I know we are out of time. Ferry, I'm sorry we've gone way over. But I just love this conversation so much. I do have one final question, and I do want to make a comment for you, Bill. Like, also from what you said, like, can you imagine a world where we all just feel like we can say what we need from life, but also from work? Like a world where we can ask, like, what do I need? But then also ask other people, how can I show up for you? Like if we could do those two things, if we could ask those two things, our worlds would be remarkably easier. It would be much better communication and teamwork and innovation. And I think that those are two questions that I hope you can take with you. But it does lead me to my last question, which is for all of you, of what is one tool that you will apply tomorrow, and not today, not next week, but tomorrow, that you can apply to improve the workplace psychological safety? So I would love to know just one thing that you're like, I took this away and I'm going to use this tomorrow.
Well, I'll answer that in part because I missed the first 15 minutes. I'm going to listen to the whole thing. So that's my tool.
That's awesome. And I'm just typing these questions that I asked in the chat because I think, yeah, how do I show up in you? Exactly. Like even just asking the question tomorrow to a colleague and say, what can I do to best support you? How can I help you today?
There's a part of human interactions that's profound, and that is what we throw out is what we get back. So I think that you've come from the position of, look, I need to be heard, but let me reach out and make sure that someone else is being heard as well. This kind of reciprocity, I think, is a tool. You've explained it in different terms, but this kind of reciprocity is so incredibly helpful in teams. And frankly, a lot of us work in teams day in and day out because we need other people to have expertise beyond us. I think that part of your presentation is a tool that I'll seek to exploit in my conversations with other and my interactions with other people.
Yeah, awesome. I love to hear that. Thanks, Phil.
I would also appreciate the part that you mentioned, that one-on-one time. You know, you have to carve enough time from your busy life to have those one-on-one moments and check in. Especially if you're the leader, you have to make the time and reserve the time to check on your team members and make sure that everybody is heard. Create that safe space.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. One-on-one and being fully present, fully attentive. Yeah. Which is hard. And sometimes we're not fully present, and that's also okay. Right. It's okay to be like, I hear you, but like I also have other things going on, and I'm gonna do my best for you right now. I'm gonna give you what I have to give, and that's all I have to offer. And that's okay. Right? Well, I just want to thank you guys for coming. I want to thank you for your presence, for your vulnerability, for your engagements. I love seeing you drive in the car. I love seeing you guys walk around. I love seeing what was going on. So thank you for being part of this with me.
Get yourself to conferences that you're going to help the world a great amount if you get to speak beyond.
I appreciate that. I will definitely do my best to get there.
Wonderful presentation, Gabrielle. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. And I did put my contact there. So if you have any questions or comments or want the slides from me or whatever it may be, if you have situations that you've experienced and you're like, oh, I don't want to ask it in the meeting, but there's a case that I have or something that I'm not sure how to deal with, you can always email me. I'm happy to respond as needed.
So when's your book coming out?
Work in progress.
Okay.
We're going to accomplish that together with Gabrielle.
Yeah. That's the next on the agenda. I just had to get through this workshop first, and now it's like the extra motivation to implement.
Okay, there you go.
Well, I like to thank Gurlane for being here and sharing her insight and her valued opinions. And thank you so much, Gabrielle, for this wonderful presentation. Just like Bill said, it's very timely. It's about time that we start talking about psychological safety, and it's valued, it's heard, and I truly appreciate it. And again, thank you everyone for joining us, being here in this 1 hour that we had together. I learned a lot. I hope you guys learned something you're taking home with those two specific points that Gabrielle made, and hope to see you guys in the next workshop, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you all. And thank you, Gurlane, also.
Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Fury. Thank you, Gabrielle. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your day.